Well, it's a new year, and we're seeing new fire from the Republicans. 7 candidates took to the primetime debate stage in South Carolina Thursday night for their 6th debate. And the biggest fireworks, not surprisingly, were between Donald Trump and Ted Cruz, who are currently neck and neck in Iowa, according to the latest polls. The Iowa caucuses kick off in fewer than 3 weeks, so a lot is on the line here. Thursday's showdown was also make or break for GOP establishment candidates Jeb Bush, Chris Christie, John Kasich, and Marco Rubio. With me in the CBSN studio are CBS News senior political editor Steve Chigueras, CBS News congressional correspondent Nancy Cordes, and Republican strategist and now CBS News political contributor Rick Davis. Rick served as the campaign manager for Senator John McCain. We were talking about Donald Trump tonight, and in the 5 previous debates, GOP debates, the consensus has generally been, among the people that we've talked to among ourselves, that Donald Trump is not the best debater. But tonight, there seemed to be a big change, Steve.
A lot of energy, and a lot of it, I think, had to do with him on issues such as the birther issue with Ted Cruz, and then on the other criticism from Cruz to Trump about New York values. It really gave Trump a moment to not only defend himself for being a New Yorker, but really just sort of say to Ted Cruz, you're really being unfair here, and I think won the audience over with his answer on that one.
Well, we'll let you be the judge of how effective that was. Here it is when Donald Trump and Ted Cruz got into whether Ted Cruz should be eligible to occupy the Oval Office.
Do you want to try to close this topic once and for all tonight?
Well, Neil, I'm glad we are focusing on the important topics of the evening. You know, back in September, my friend Donald said that he had had his lawyers look at this from every which way, and there was no issue there. There was nothing to this birther issue. Now, since September, the Constitution hasn't changed. But the poll numbers have. And I recognize that Donald is dismayed that his poll numbers are falling in Iowa. But the facts and the law here are really quite clear. Under long-standing U.S. law, the child of a U.S. citizen born abroad is a natural-born citizen. And birther theories that Donald has been relying on, some of the more extreme ones insist that you must not only be born on U.S. soil, but have 2 parents born on U.S. soil. Under that theory, not only would I be disqualified, Marco Rubio would be disqualified, Bobby Jindal would be disqualified, and interestingly enough, Donald J. Trump would be disqualified. Because Donald's mother was born in Scotland. She was naturalized. Now, Donald,
but I was born here.
On the issue of citizenship, Donald.
Big difference.
On the issue of citizenship, Donald, I'm not going to use your mother's birth against you.
And really, he just can't, because, again, it's about whether the person was born on U.S. soil. But Ted Cruz, did he put the issue to bed, Rick?
Well, he was trying to use the old Reagan line, I won't use your youth and inexperience against you. And so it worked for Reagan. It did not work for
That
Ted
was a stretch.
Cruz. Yeah.
But other than that, I thought that, you know, look, saying that the Constitution hasn't changed since September, but poll numbers have, was effective and smart. But
it's a
I
cute
don't,
line, but he's off message, right? Even talking about this issue is a waste of a couple of minutes on TV time. And his constituents, the people who want to support him in Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, they're not getting excited about this. He's not convincing anybody new to vote for him. So it's just a regression for him to be even talking about this.
He did get Donald Trump to admit, though, that the only reason he brought up this topic in the first place is because Ted Cruz is rising in the polls.
And in fact, here it is. Here's Donald Trump's rebuttal.
This isn't me saying it. I don't care. I think I'm going to win fair and square. I don't have to win this way. Thank you. Lawrence tried, and numerous from Harvard, said that there is a serious question as to whether or not Ted can do this, okay? There are other attorneys that feel, and very, very fine constitutional attorneys, that feel that because he was not born on the land, he cannot run for office. So you should go out, get a declaratory judgment, let the courts decide, and you shouldn't have mentioned the polls because I would have been much different.
Why now? Why are you raising this issue now?
Because now he's doing a little bit better. No, I didn't care before. It's true. No, it's true. Hey, look, he never had a chance. Now he's doing better. He's got probably a 4 or 5% chance.
Well, listen, I've spent my entire life defending the Constitution before the U.S. Supreme Court, and I'll tell you, I'm not going to be taking legal advice from Donald Trump.
You don't have to. Take it from Lawrence Trump. You don't have to.
What I'll tell you also.
Take it from your professor.
What I will
Take
tell
it from
you
your own
also.
professor.
If I can tell you one
Chances
thing.
of any litigation proceeding and succeeding on this are zero.
It's
Now,
wrong.
Mr. Trump
It's wrong.
is very focused on Larry Tribe. Let me tell you who Larry Tribe is. He's a left-wing judicial activist, Harvard Law professor, who was Al Gore's lawyer in Bush versus Gore. He's a major Hillary Clinton supporter, and there's a reason why Hillary's supporters are echoing Donald's attacks on me.
He
because
is not
Hillary
the only one.
wants
He
to
is
face
not the
Donald
only
Trump
one.
in the
there
general
are many
election.
lawyers.
And I'll tell you what, Donald, you very kindly just a moment ago offered me the VP slot. I'll tell you what. If this all works out, I'm happy to consider naming you as VP. And so if you happen to be right, you could get the top job at the end of the day.
No, I think if it doesn't.
I love hearing about who's going to be the VP choice before we even get to the very first caucus of the nominating process. It was very exciting, and it was very entertaining back and forth, and the crowd loved it. But the issue is, does this issue of Ted Cruz and whether he belongs in this race, does it get put aside, Nancy?
You know, the problem for Donald Trump with this issue is that the same people who support him love Ted Cruz. And in fact, they've been Ted Cruz supporters longer than they've been Donald Trump supporters. You know, Ted Cruz has a very loyal following among Tea Party Republicans and among many powerful members of the conservative media who really don't like when Donald Trump brings up this issue. You know, they don't mind if he wants to debate Ted Cruz on, you know, policy issues. But when you go after Cruz in a personal way and you damage someone who they still think would make a fine nominee, then Trump is really on thin ice.
Yeah, I think that it's an interesting situation because Cruz's rise has come at the expense of Carson. And we barely heard from Carson tonight.
Barely.
He was a non-factor completely. So if you really look at this from a analysis point of view of who's going to gain from this, I think Cruz will continue to gain from Carson supporters who now realize that guy's not going anywhere. And so as Carson voters migrate to Cruz, all this could just be sort of a folly.